Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens with your hosts, Jake and Scott. In this week's episode, we are talking about two heavy-hitting Wild Turkey releases, Russell's Reserve 15 and Triumph, the new rye whiskey that's 10 years old from Wild Turkey. So sit back and buckle in and listen to the latest episode of the Bourbon Lens. Scott, gobble gobble, baby.
It's turkey time.
I don't have any other things that I could talk about. If only we had our boy David Jennings here, or pseudo Wild Turkey fan Frank Dobbins, aka Bourbon Enthusiasm. We could have a whole turkey family, but we'll just gobble by ourselves on this one.
A whole family of turkeys.
We could, yeah. What are those called? They like a pride? No, that's a line. I don't know.
A pride of turkeys.
Yeah, the pride of Kentucky.
Yeah.
Kentucky Pride. See, look, I brought it back. Don't you worry. I'm here for all the fun puns. If you have any more, let us know. info@bourbonlens.com. But always, it's great to chit chat with you about a single topic. We do love our guest. Don't get me wrong. In our last episode, I was on my soapbox a little bit about fireworks. I'm off of it after the fact now.
It wasn't too bad after all, right? Nobody caught the house on fire. Yeah.
I'm alive. We're doing this. So we have two amazing whiskeys in front of us. So Wild Turkey, we got to do this event for the new visitor center. Let's start there. We got to go there end of May. So it's been a little bit since we've been there. What did you think of the new visitor center experience?
I just think that original building, that building, which has been there for several years, it's like a cathedral to whiskey. And they've elevated it even further. It's just a cool spot. Like driving down the Bourbon Trail, let's pull over there.
Yeah.
And it's just homey and welcoming. It's like, go grab a cocktail, sit at the bar, overlook the Kentucky River, overlook the bridge. Awesome.
Yeah. It's a beautiful view, first and foremost. If you have too many whiskeys, you can go jump off the bridge and bungee jump.
Not enough whiskey in the world.
No. Eddie Russell said there's not enough whiskey. So if Eddie said there's not, I'm agreeing with Eddie on that one. I like my life, but there's really not a lot out there, right? You got Four Roses, probably, down the holler a little bit, and Wild Turkey. You could go further east, obviously, and hit Woodford, Castle Key, all that fun stuff. But that's still 10 miles down the road. As the crows flies. That's not as the journey of the back roads take you. So to be able to sit there and experiencing that, and Eddie told us something that was really interesting. He's like, and maybe it was Bruce, one of the two. Actually, it was Bruce, because he was like, Mimi's got a whole new energy about him since the new visitor center's open. And for those who don't know, Mimi is Jimmy Russell. And Jimmy has been getting up, getting ready, and going to work every day and enjoying the brand new visitor center. And however old he is, he's in his 90s, I believe. That's pretty damn impressive.
Oh, he's forever young.
Hey, when it comes to Wild Turkey and that visitor center, he is.
So that is so funny. You said "as the crow flies." So I used that exclamation this weekend with my cousin and her husband, which he's my cousin too by marriage, but they're from Ohio. And I said, "Oh yeah," because they said, "Do you live far from here?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, as the crow flies, just a few minutes." And he said, "Oh, like east to west?" And I was like, "What?" He thought "as the crow flies" meant east to west. I was like, "No, it means if you didn't have streets to fly." So shout out to my cousin Joey from Ohio. Did not know what that meant, so I had to explain it. But
probably
here in Kentucky, that's what we say. It's not too far if you didn't have to travel and on roads.
Probably says the Ohio State or some bullshit.
No, he's from Northern Ohio, so he doesn't deal with all that shit.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. I really enjoyed that dinner. Was great food, great drinks. I had my first espresso bourbon drink. I don't know what it was. I don't like espresso. I don't like coffee. I drank it because we're hanging out with the Russells. Why not? Right. But that food was really damn good.
It was just home cooking, and it was at home. That's what it felt like, right? I mean, the sun was setting in Lawrenceburg. it's just,
we had a great group of people with us.
yeah.
I think that was the other thing. Like the people there were really easy to chat with and get along. And we were with the self-proclaimed historian of Wild Turkey, David Jennings, aka Rare Bird 101. And Dave doesn't miss a chance to talk about Wild Turkey. And so it was great to have him there. And it's funny because, Eddie and Bruce were there with us, and they were like, I don't know, ask David.
Yeah. Like, what about this? Is like, well, he wrote a book on it, so check with him.
Yeah. But man, it was a really good time, and it's the second time I've been up there in the last 6 months. Before that, you know how many times I'd been to Wild Turkey?
Wasn't it 0?
0. Before December, I had not been to Wild Turkey ever.
And I had been 3
Forever
times
ago.
before, but pre new distillery and everything. So it was like, I've watched that evolution, and it's insane. And they're still building. They're building right now for another distillery.
Brand new distillery going in. Like for those who have said or contemplated or baited someone into say, is the whiskey boom dead? Y'all are stupid. I've said it. I'm done. That's my soapbox for this episode. Is the whiskey boom is still booming.
We got a lot of whiskey to sell. We got a lot of bourbon to sell in Antarctica. We do reach those tentacles out even further. So that's what's coming.
We gotta get those penguins. I think the penguins would like bourbon.
Oh, I've talked to them. They do.
They waddle around, so they're already used to being drunk.
100%.
But let's stay on this topic for one iota. People look at like MGP. Talked about a steady increase. It wasn't like a 30% jump. It was like 7. But here's my thing: until there's no allocation, until I can readily find bourbon available, it's booming in some way because somebody's paying some astronomical price for a bourbon or a whiskey that I don't want at that price. Like, that's basic economics, guys. Like, supply and demand. Obviously, they know that they don't have enough supply to equal the demand that's out there. And so they can put allocations on whiskey and charge astronomical prices for it. Like, we just had an episode on Jim Beam. Like, they put out a 7-year-old age-stated whiskey at $24.99. Like, they have the scale to do that. So the economics work. If you don't have the economics to make that happen, or that you won't reproduce that whiskey ever again, Weller Millennium, like, the economics work. You're creating hype. You're creating that opportunity for exclusivity. Okay, I get that. But like, the economics says that bourbon is still booming because it's still going to be bought off the shelf every day at a high clip.
The amount of people that talk about bourbon, the amount of people that know about bourbon, I mean, it's insane. Before it was like, oh, I'm into bourbon. Oh, that's kind of cool. Like, I'm into
fountain pens.
Whatever. But it's like the amount of people are like, oh, have you heard about this? Or did you see that news article on this? It's just never ending.
Yeah. And the reason I said fountain pens is because Scott Dilley was once into fountain pens, and you can check him out on Flipboard. He's got a fountain pen whole flip
I still am.
program.
Still am.
There you go.
Got a whole pen holder full of pens on my desk.
Do you have a pocket protector?
I don't put pens in my pocket. That's a mistake.
But do you own a pocket protector?
No, absolutely not. Not that I'm aware of. Like, I'm like thinking, like, has somebody sent me one over the years? I don't know. No.
Speaking of pocket protectors, I'm just going to shout out Jaron. I'm not going to say what Instagram handle is. If you know him, you know him. Just passed his residency, got through it, and starting a job. He will need to send him a pocket protector. We need to send him a Bourbon Lens themed pocket protector for all of his pins as he sees his patients.
What a badass dude.
Yeah. Like, shout out, man. Big time. Big time.
That's a big accomplishment. We've been friends with him for quite a while, and virtually the whole time we've known him, he's been fighting towards this path. So, congrats. That's awesome. Well,
and it's really cool because, like, Lauren's like, those people we had dinner with at Doc Crow's that one night, it's just like, it's been that long. and it's been a road to hoe. You know, the other thing that I'll tell you that has been very exciting. Lauren has tried whiskey cocktails recently, speaking of my wife. And there is nothing cooler than when your wife actually enjoys the hobby that you're into. And my hobby happens to be that bottles show up at the house often, and I talk about them. It's not that I drink them all the time. That's why I said it the way I did. But man, we made some really cool. We made a whiskey Paloma, basically is what we made. She really enjoyed that. And ChatGPT for the ideas. Shout out ChatGPT. If you want to sponsor Bourbon Lens. It
makes cocktails?
It does. You can ask it for cocktail inspiration. And then we made, I don't know what I made, to be honest. I put the recipe out there. You can go check it out on our Instagram. But it was 2.5 ounces of Boo Rye. So I used, it was straight rye whiskey. So I used Rendezvous Rye. We're going to be talking about rye whiskey here in a second. So segues there. And then I did a quarter ounce of simple, a quarter or a half ounce of grapefruit juice, and then 3 dashes of blueberry bitters. And the ladies loved it. It was an enjoyable cocktail for the summer. I don't know what you would compare that to, but they loved it.
So the grapefruit, it was what, Fever Tree?
A grapefruit, no. So the grapefruit was freshly squeezed grapefruit juice.
Okay.
Yep. The Fever Tree was in the highball Paloma.
Oh, okay.
I use grapefruit club soda.
I've got a neighbor who makes a killer Paloma, but again, I don't like whiskey, so maybe I don't like
You don't like whiskey?
I got a neighbor that makes a killer Paloma, but I don't really care for tequila, but maybe we could mix it up.
Yeah, throw a rye whiskey in it.
So like a lighter rye whiskey, like not
like a 90 proofer.
Yeah.
I was reaching for the bottled and bond rye, but I thought the pot still would be a little bit too much. So I went with something a little bit older in age, but also had a little bit of proof to it, 90-ish proof. So I think it's definitely an enjoyable drink. And the grapefruit is very delightful. And then now I've seen just a lot of grapefruit inspired cocktails. And so now I want to try more of them. And then guess what? So we do that on a Saturday. And then our guy, Mr. Robert Cutler from Cocktails at Friends podcast, at his restaurant, they were featuring a spicy Paloma this week at Novio's Bistro.
Ooh.
Yeah. I know Courtney loves a good Paloma.
Yeah. I mean, she likes tequila cocktails.
I mean, who doesn't love a good marg?
Fresh margs. That's what's going to happen on vacation.
Cinco de Drinko. You know what I mean? Just get the fresh lime juice. Gotta get a little agave nectar. Gotta sans the simple syrup. But like you could also use get the jalapeno and then do a little spicy marg. You know what I mean?
Sometimes I cheat and just do the, you can do the simply lemon or simply lime. Add the fresh strawberries and then just pour in tequila. Let it set for a day.
And then go for it.
That's an amazing batch cocktail.
Yeah, I get that. But you gotta go the 25% less sugar or whatever. Cause one of those simply lime or simply lemonades are just way too much freaking sugar.
Well, they're not 90 calorie Mick Ultras. That's for sure.
Oh, gotta love a good Mick on the summer beach. Mickey Holtz, give me one of those. Shout out Brian for the unloaded Bourbon Lens podcast for drinking a Mick Ultra on one of the first Bourbon Lens podcasts. Ah, dude, I'm here for it. And with his blue Yeti mic, and he was like, we're like, what bourbon made that sound? Oh, I got a fresh Mick Ultra.
6 years ago,
dude. Wild times.
Yeah.
Wild times. That would be, speaking of our last episode, we talked about YouTube Shorts. How great would that be if we did some unreleased content from the original podcast on YouTube Shorts?
I have released all those podcast audio files into the ether, and they are now burned up in some volcano in Hawaii.
Okay, well, we are not going to do that then. But
They
what
exist
we are going to
somewhere on an old computer or something.
what we are going to do is we're going to talk about new whiskey from Wild Turkey. When I told you to sit back and buckle in, I literally meant to literally buckle in to the conversation that Scott and I were about to have. So Scott, I'm going to give you dealer's choice here. You tell us which way you want to go. Do you want to go Russell's 15 or Triumph 10-year rye whiskey?
To start, I think it makes sense to start with the rye.
Okay, you want to talk rye because that was the first one released of the two.
It was the first. It's also the lowest proof, the lower of the proofs, and a little bit younger.
Slightly.
That's my logic.
Okay, so your logic is that we're going to talk about Triumph. So Triumph is the second rye whiskey from the Master's Keep series. Bonus points. Can you name the first Master's Keep rye whiskey?
I'm just looking at your bar, top right.
Yes, it is.
Cornerstone.
It is. It is the cornerstone of the bar.
It should be the bottom right.
It should be. But this isn't Israel, so we're good. This isn't the Temple Mount or the pyramids or wherever, So yes, cornerstone. Similar proof point on this one. This is 104 proof. I believe cornerstone is 109. So a little bit higher, but a year older. Also in a green box. The box didn't change too much. But it is a new name in a Triumph. When you think of the word Triumph and rye whiskey, what do you think?
Standing on a rock with your chest out.
Okay, so there's superhero in it a little bit.
Yeah.
They got their chest puffed.
That's always my first thought.
Okay.
Like a triumphant return. Here I am.
Here I am.
See me roar.
And speaking of See Me Roar, the first Master's Keep that Bruce Russell is a part of.
Bruce.
Bruce here in his triumphant return to Master's Keep after his introduction at Generations. So this is a rye whiskey. If you think about Russell's rye guy, you would think Eddie would put out a rye. What did he do? And with his son kind of involved, him and Bruce pick out a rye whiskey. So it's 10 years, 104 proof. This is a Kentucky style rye. So it's barely rye whiskey. It's 51%, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So this is a rye I think you can get behind because you get there's one note in here that I think stands out to me that probably stands out to you. And it starts with a C and ends with an N.
Starts. What?
It's corn. Starts with a C and ends with an N. How'd you not get that?
Totally missed that one.
Too late for Scott. We're doing this at 11 o'clock.
It's not so much corn, but it's definitely like, it's almost like cake batter sweetness.
Dare I say pancakes?
Maybe like cornbread. Like sweet Jiffy cornbread.
Hey, you ain't told no lies about Jiffy
that's like
cornbread.
the base to this.
Yeah. It's more than that.
Yeah, there's so much more, but I like Kentucky style ryes. As everyone knows, I cannot stand 95.5 ryes. Just can't do it.
He can do it. He's drank many of them. Now, is he nice about them?
Don't
Probably not.
do it.
It's like the child. Jameson's big on Pete the Cat right now, and Pete the Cat's got an album. If you don't know, now you know. And Pete the Cat, one of his songs is the 3-bite rule. You may not want it on the first bite. You may not want it on the second, but on the third bite, you probably like it. And so on the third sip, Scott may like his 95.5 rye whiskey. But in this one, he didn't have to wait to the third sip. He enjoyed this one on the first sip.
So pro tip, give your kid small portions of everything that they need to eat, because by the third bite, it'll be gone, right?
Exactly.
Bingo.
But don't wait to feed them after practice. Dealt with that tonight. Stupid mistake. Feed them beforehand.
Practice? What's he practice? We're talking about practice?
talking about practice, summer practice.
Football?
Soccer.
Damn, my soccer player's not even playing summer soccer.
It's soccer shots. Let's not make a big deal out of it.
Getting ready for fall.
Yeah, for football. When we sans soccer for football because we're not playing two sports at once. But anywho, back to the Triumphant whiskey. So I agree with you. Kind of more Jiffy cornbread, vanilla, orange, big kind of like marmalade, orange marmalade kind of nose to me. It's a very, very approachable rye whiskey at 104 proof on the nose, and I think the nose and the palate kind of carry over. Now, we've had a few tonight, and I will honestly say check out the website this week because I'm going to be doing a blind rare breed rye whiskey, Cornerstone rye whiskey, and Triumph. So we'll be going at this blind, and I will honestly tell you my favorite rye whiskey from the Russell family, from Wild Turkey, during the podcast week. Today, I can tell you that I believe that this is a really, really good rye whiskey. But what I'll tell you more, when I have a very fresh palate, it'll be in written content on the Bourbon Lens podcast website, bourbonlens.com.
I'm excited because you're going to pick rare breed rye, and then you'll be like, damn, I just saved $200.
I mean, come on now. I'm not going to be upset with whichever one I pick, but if it's rare breed rye, at least I know I got 2 bottles of it.
So I'm going to look for a single barrel of the Russell's rye. If I can find it, I'll pick it up and I'll get you a sample of it so you can add that to the mix.
I mean,
I think that's only fair because I think it's 100 and like just over like 105 proof, maybe.
I mean, we know a guy. We can ask him.
Yeah. I'll
ask a guy.
I just think that the best way to taste whiskey is obviously blind with other similar whiskeys that you can actually like, this is better or this is worse or this, not that any of them are probably going to be bad, but also you're trying to pull out Nat's ass type details between the two.
Don't you worry. I'm not good at pulling out Nat's ass details, but I can tell you which one's which by the end of it. That's all that matters. So this is the most latest Master's Keep that I have tried. I did not get to try Voyage. I did not get to try one. The last one that I have was the Master's Keep 17, bottled and bond.
Big boy whiskey.
Big boy whiskey. Or big girl. Whoever. We don't discriminate. Men and women both drink whiskey. It's America's spirit, right?
What's a female turkey called?
A turkey? A turkeyetta?
Google.
A gobble gobble? If a male turkey's called a gobble,
no, it's called a tom.
No, it's not.
What?
A female turkey is not called a tom.
A male turkey is called a tom.
Oh.
A female turkey is called a hen.
Okay. Well, we got toms and hens. We love them all. They all drink turkey. Gobble,
I like editing podcasts because I can edit all this out and it'll be just fine.
So,
or we keep it in.
Yeah, we keep it in. It's a fun time. So, Scott, here's the real question. I have no clue what the SRP is anymore on these. I think it's $199.99. It could be higher than that. Would you pay that price tag for this whiskey? Not as Scott, as a normal bourbon consumer.
Friday afternoon, got my raise. Maybe got a small bonus. I think so. I mean, I think we're at a good time for whiskey right now. It's like the big producers are putting out some big boy whiskeys. They're putting out nice age statements. And they're capturing like a good time capsule of what whiskey is right now. So I think if you do have that little collector's mindset, I think we all kind of do. I feel like every guy kind of has that, like, oh, I'm going to buy this. And one day I'm going to need that on my bar. I'm going to need that for whatever. I think probably so. 10 years, Wild Turkey Triumph,
Now, I mean, 10-year-old rye is on the market.
Yeah. Now I will play spoiler and tell you that it's $250.
Which is really sad because for a 17-year-old whiskey and the Master's Keep 17 bottle and bond, I did not pay that. I paid $199.99. My, how times have changed over the last 4 years.
Also, the amount of rye that Turkey produces compared to bourbon is probably
minuscule. Yes. So I agree. I think this is a potential buy at the right time at the right price. If you can get it at SRP at $250, yes. If you are celebrating that thing, yes. I think you could do yourself justice by buying rare breed rye whiskey, and maybe passing on this. I think it is a quintessential Kentucky style rye whiskey. And so I think overall, is it enjoyable? Yes. Does it price me out a little bit? Yes. I mean, I'm not the same bourbon consumer that I was when we started this podcast. When we started this podcast, I'd go buy, $200 bottles and it was no big deal. Now it's like, I know what I like. I can find stuff on what I like on the shelf every day.
Well, and there's also a lot more competition too at the higher end of the scale, right?
True.
You can't buy
everything
$200 bottle.
6 years ago, we could at normal prices.
Yeah. I mean, cause there was a handful, right?
Yeah. There was a handful of ultra premium,
but now everybody's trying to put their stamp in and say, you need to try ours. Like, I think Wild Turkey makes a great argument every single time they put out a release because it's like, we've got this old stock whiskey.
Yep.
We have the capacity. We have the capability. We have the lineage. It's going to be good. If you're a Wild Turkey fanboy, hell yeah. Don't think you can really miss on many of the Master's Keeps.
True. But
there is a lot of competition.
If you're saving your money and you are a Wild Turkey fanboy, there's another thing they put out, and it's called Russell's Reserve 15. Russell's Reserve 13 was a huge hit, very tasty whiskey. And they were like, you know what? Let's add 2 years to this. So if you're not a rye guy, you may be a bourbon guy. And Russell's 15 is a quintessential Wild Turkey bourbon. It's 100 and something proof. I don't have it right in front of me. I'm going to call it maybe like 110-ish, what I would guess.
117.2.
117. So it doesn't drink that hot, I don't think. I don't think it drinks 117. I do have FOMO. Didn't get to go to that event with all the cool riders that came in town to drink it, but whatever. It's cool. I'll cry later. But I did enjoy this whiskey. Now, I think you had a different experience than I did as we talk about this high proof or mid-high proof whiskey, bourbon, and its age statement. I think we got a lot of similar notes on the nose, but our palates and our finish may differ. And this one carries a little bit of a heftier price tag as well. So talking about the price first, this one is, again, over $200 as well, correct?
Yeah, it's right on too. It's $250.
Yeah. So at least they're setting a mark for anything in their halo. They're putting at $250. They're not putting anything out like $500, which they probably could, which they did with Generations, I think was like $495 or $395.
Yeah.
This one is Eddie Russell in a whiskey to me. After getting to know Eddie just a nth of a degree, right? Like few conversations, hearing him talk, listen to him, what he talks about, how he likes his whiskey. This is Eddie Russell to me in a bottle. So if you like what Eddie likes, then I think this is a whiskey for you. If you don't like what Eddie likes, you may be off on it a little bit.
Yeah, it just screams to me like mature bourbon, mature, slow sipping bourbon.
Yeah.
Like if you drink it too fast, you're going to miss it. And you need to drink it slow.
Yeah. Well, and for me, I couldn't tell you what I tasted, what I liked about it, blah, 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 blah. So I went to find Russell's 13 And then I realized I had finished my bottles of Russell's 13 RIP. So I grabbed Master's Keep 17 bottled and bond. And I was like, let's see what we got here. After smelling the 17 and going back to the 15, the youthful sweetness started to show up. That's when I liked it a little bit more. The nose carried the palate, then the palate carried the finish, and then the finish finished strong. To me, $250 is a hard price to carry on this. Is it a good whiskey? Yes. Is it an exceptional whiskey? I would have to try it blind against a lot of other things that I like already this year. But I'm not going to say it's bad. Like, I'm not like, this is where you kind of get into semantics on like when people are like, oh, well, it's 90 out of 100. Okay. But like, what's 90 mean? Like, what's your 50? Like, what's your middle, right? Like, is this in the like upper echelons of whiskey? Yeah, sure. Like it's in the 80s to 100s. And my middle ground is 50. Like JTS Brown is a 50 whiskey, 50s to 60 whiskey. It's going to get you back to normal. Like my middle whiskey is going to be like High West. I have a High West bourbon, just kind of puts me back at middle. And that's my like 50 to 60, like it's in the middle. And then I kind of rate, from there.
Other people don't rate below an 85.
Yeah. But you got to have a middling whiskey, right? Like, and I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm saying that average whiskey to me needs to be in that 50 to 60 range. And that's where like I get a lot of my flavors from. And then if anything's above that 50 to 60 range, it's good. And if it's in the 80 to 90 category, it's great. And if it's 90 plus, it's exceptional. I'm saying this is in the 80 to 90 range.
Yeah.
It's a great whiskey. Is it exceptional? I don't know. I can't tell you.
Yeah, and we're also comparing it to a rye right now, so it's probably, like you said, it's within context, but it's a very mature bourbon that has a lot of oak, has a lot of like deeper, richer flavors.
It's got a lot of tannin to it,
but it does have a lot of tannins. If you like that, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you like rich, complex whiskeys, this is bourbons for you, right? Like my palate notes were very simple: caramel, vanilla, a little bit of tannin, lemon, and then I got this idea of buttered kuka, so like some cream cheese filling. And then some brown sugar started to show up. So brown sugar, vanilla, cream cheese, frosting, finish. Like it can get sweet, but I think your mind has to get you there a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just go through my quick tasting notes, but on the nose, it was sweet but musty oak, berries, and root beer, which that root beer was kind of like the surprising thing for me. It was like cola sweetness, but it had like this earthiness, like clove and a few like spicy characteristics. But then you get to the palate and to me, it's like Rickhouse, like tasting whiskey in a Rickhouse. And it has like a little bready, like doughy, like almost like cinnamon roll.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to me, it's an excellent whiskey. But is it a whiskey that I would pay $1,000 for? Like I've seen some people listing this, like the 13-year and I'm sure the 15-year, which is hitting stores right now. I'm sure that's what, it's going to go for upwards of $1,000. But again, you got whiskeys like Pappy 15, easy $1,000. Does Wild Turkey make better whiskey than Buffalo Trace? Probably, yes. I don't have any problem saying that. Like I feel like they have the lineage and they have the caretaking of the brand. Like they've got that wrapped up. So if you're prepared to spend that type of money for whiskey, I don't think you're going to be disappointed.
No, if you can find it at SRP, it's a dub all day long. If you got to start paying secondary, that's a swift kick in the dick. And like, just, it's the one thing that like frustrates me beyond belief when it comes to whiskey. It's like, I get it. You're store owners. You got to do what you got to do. But like, if you understand the 3-tier model and then they put it above SRP after they've already gotten their 40% on top of that, it's just really just it sucks. But Wild Turkey's making good whiskey. I think that's all what we need to tell you here is Wild Turkey is hitting some strides. I think they are in good hands as Bruce kind of leans more into the product innovation side. Eddie's going to continue to put some stuff out. Jimmy is there at the visitor center. Got to go see him while you can. Like, don't miss that opportunity to meet like one of the most knowledgeable whiskey savants that there is. He's got a special release coming up here later this year. So that's pretty damn cool. But all in all, Scott, I'll ask you one question. I've got $500 for you. You can buy one of these whiskeys, and you can have money left over for each. But you can buy one of, and we'll say it's like $385, whatever. $500. Which whiskey are you buying?
Surprisingly, I think I would buy the Triumph.
Interesting. And surprisingly, probably to you, I'm going to go with the Russell's Reserve. I like the Triumph a lot, but the Russell's Reserve 15, I think a whole bottle would give you a lot to explore. I think the Triumph may be a little one-notey.
But
you'll find out more from me in my blind review that I'll be doing here for bourbonlens.com.
It's super interesting because it's like if you're a Wild Turkey fan, you probably lean towards the bourbon.
Yeah.
I don't think Wild Turkey rye brought people to the table of Wild Turkey. I think they might have discovered Wild Turkey rye after becoming a fan of the brand. So I think that's why maybe I'm like, maybe give this rye a chance. Like, not a chance, but like it needs somebody to bring it, hand holding, like, come and try this. But I think like Wild Turkey rye at 10 years, damn.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, they ain't missing. And if you get a chance to do a rye single barrel, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with what Bruce and the team will help you pick there at Wild Turkey. And make sure you stop and see our guy, Bo, and he'll tell you how to get the best picture in Rickhouse A as you do your tasting. But thanks, everybody, for listening to this latest episode. We really appreciate it. And again, check out what we're doing at YouTube. There's going to be some new content there that you can see. We'll be breaking down some of these articles and reviews here on YouTube Shorts, so check that out. And until next time, Scott, I'll see you soon, I'm sure. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Bourbon Lens. Make sure you're connected with Scott and I via social media on Instagram, X, and Facebook. We'd love to connect. And if you're more the professional type, follow us over on LinkedIn. If you want to know more about Bourbon Lens, make sure you're subscribed to our weekly newsletter, The Weekly Pour. For exclusive content and more, check out Patreon. Follow us there at Bourbon Lens. And last but not least, on your favorite podcast listening app, make sure you're subscribed because every Monday, Scott and I release a podcast, and we would love to have you here listening to the newest features and the newest whiskey news. And until next time, cheers.